intellectual experience. Like that shit gets never old. And I'm here with
Am I gonna talk now?
yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I'm Brage Økland.
Brage, Økland.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what the fuck did I bring you here?
I don't know really. I'm a very complex person. Mainly, I'm a football player, a football coach. I'm very interested in football as well as, for example, I'm also very interested in most of sports, but fuck's sake. Mostly it's football and cycling, which is my favorite sports.
Cycling.
Yeah, very funny.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, cycling is the gay sport. What? Yeah, and yeah, I'm very interested in social problems and politics as well. I believe we're going to talk about sports mostly in this podcast. So, well, yeah, so I'm very interested in sports, especially football and politics. And yeah, I contain a lot of knowledge and access most of the human population when it comes to containing knowledge. But most of it is very random, so I'm very good at quizzes. But yeah, my quizzes is my specialty. But yeah, the knowledge that I contain doesn't bring me very far in life. It just makes me impress some people and makes me look like a dumbass to some people.
I contain a lot of knowledge.
Folks
Yeah,
say,
but I brought you here mainly because of football.
yeah,
I mean, and for you stupid Americans, that is soccer. And we're both coaches,
yeah,
right?
I'm a better coach than you though.
I've only seen you. You haven't seen me though.
Yeah, but I know because I know that I am the best.
Oh,
So
nice,
you
okay,
can't
yeah.
be better than me
Nice.
when I'm the best.
Nice. But so what I wanted to kind of do, because we're both 18-year-old football coaches with almost like no experience, right?
Yeah,
We're basically fresh out of the National C course.
yeah.
It is the National C, right?
It is nationally hosted, but it's counted as a UEFA C license.
Yeah, if,
So
yeah,
you
right,
have
yeah, yeah.
4 steps of the UEFA coaching school. You have the UEFA C, UEFA B, UEFA A, and
Pro.
then you have UEFA Pro.
Yeah.
So to be a coach at like a national level, you have to have UEFA B. But most coaches in Norway start at UEFA C and then B. And
Yeah,
so
right.
forth.
So we're at C right now.
We've had C.
Yeah, and
So-
then B is the next. Actually.
Yeah.
This is makes sense. But yeah, B is the next.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So if there's anybody professional listening, just go away. You can nothing you're gonna learn here.
Well, you see it from another perspective, even though maybe you've gone through yourself. But for example,
you contain so much knowledge. As you were
yeah,
saying.
but for example, Zinedine Zidane, he had to take up his coaching licenses because he started as a Real Madrid Castilla coach without licenses. So before he could be the Real Madrid coach, he had to take those courses because he didn't have licenses enough for being a La Liga coach.
Yeah, but if you're previously a professional player,
Yeah.
don't you go straight to B?
No. You have to take all the courses and contain all the licenses. So the problem for Zidane was that he became a coach for Castilla where he didn't need to have any licenses to coach. But then when he was appointed manager of Real Madrid, like the senior team,
Yeah.
he had to take those courses because you have to, I believe it's UEFA B or UEFA A to be a coach at like the highest national leagues in every country. So if you want to be a coach in the Elite Serien, the Norwegian league,
Yeah.
you have to have UEFA B, I believe.
I think it's maybe UEFA.
No, I think it's UEFA A.
Yeah.
A or B.
I'm not gonna speculate this. I have no idea what the fuck I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, to make it, we have the UEFA C one.
Yeah.
Right.
Same as you.
So we're like the bottom bitch
Yeah.
in our profession.
But like in Norway, we jump straight to see. In other countries, you have like a national A, B, and C license as well. So I believe in England you have to take a national C, B, A, and then
Okay.
you get a UFC. So I think in Norway you like do a little shortcut where you take all the national ones in the same type of pot, and then when you're done with them you have a UFC license.
Yeah, yeah, because I mean, just to make it clear, we took what's known as Grasrotränaren
Yeah,
1 through 4,
yeah, and
1 to 3
those.
to 4,
So
and
basically,
that combines to a UFSC license.
so if you take the grassroots
Yeah.
coach course, just part 1 out of 4, you technically have just a national C license.
Okay.
But if you take all 4, you have the UFC license. So you can say that the 4th course is like the UFC license, and the first 3 is C, B, and A. So 1 is C, 2 is B, and 1 is A. Or no, 3 is 3 is A, and then when you go to 4, you have like a UFC license.
Yeah. And that's what we got.
Yeah, shit coaches, but we have some
Yeah.
some qualifications. We can lie on our resumes.
Yeah, yeah. And we also have the wait. Is the goalkeeping included into that,
You
or
can't-
or,
you
or is that a
can't-
bonus we got?
The goalkeeping is like a mandatory part of it, but you can take the goalkeeping part as an exemption, so you can take it outside of the course. But then you won't get like the coaching license, but you will get the goalkeeping coaching license. If you understand.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And
You
we
can
both.
just take pure goalkeeping courses,
Okay.
but you will get goalkeeping courses included in like the total package.
Yeah, yeah. So you become certified into NCO.
Yeah, so you have like a certification of being a goalkeeping coach at the UFC level. But then after that, you have to, if you want to have a UFB license in goalkeeping coaching, you have to take a known course, like the UFB goalkeeping license has its own course. So if you take a UFB course to have a coaching license, you don't get the goalkeeping coaching part as you get with UFC. You understand?
Okay, okay. I think
So-
I think
so
I
like-
think we're focusing on totally the wrong thing here. Okay.
Is
We have
is a warm up.
we have the UFSC license.
This is C.
Okay, to make it very clear. And that makes us a bunch of idiots trying to make other people better at football, basically.
Yeah.
Just put it in context, and so we can actually focus on what we know instead of just speculating like, oh, do you need B, do you need C, do you need A,
Yeah,
do you
yeah.
need... Okay, so we have the UFSC. We actually are coaching a team,
Mm-hmm.
both of us, a couple times a week. And we're just here to talk about football and kind
Yeah.
of like share experiences, learn from one another.
And developing youth players.
Exactly.
Exactly.
So I just want to, because I mean, your team is 1 year older than mine.
Yeah,
Right.
I am an under 14s coach.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Which
So
I
we
think
play
I'm-
11 aside while you're under 13s. So
I
you play
think so.
9 aside?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
that's what I believe anyway. I just look and I'm like, I have no clue what the age is.
But like the FA changes the setup every year. So one
Yeah.
year it's the 12-year-olds play 7 aside, and then the next year 12-year-olds play 9 aside. So it just develops, and it's crazy because sometimes, or like when I was young, there was never like under 15s league. It was under 14s and then under 16s.
Oh yeah.
And then
yeah.
suddenly it became under 15s. And this year it was supposed to add the under 17s, but they dropped it. So they're planning on like bringing in under 17s. So before it was 13, 14, 16, and then 19. But now, or like the next year, I believe, it will be 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and then 19. So the gaps between the years will be smaller. As
Yeah.
like a part of the developing plan to
So
make.
so we're kind of in the 13, 14
Yeah.
year range.
Mm-hmm.
That's our profession. That's our
We-
expertise.
We are like the coaches that are the first coaches that step in after the parents
Quit.
quit, yeah.
Yeah,
Or like
basically.
the transition period from parent coaches to club coaches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which in Norway is at least very normal to have just parents doing that until they're
Yeah,
like
no,
14.
normally you don't get like external coaches before you are 13, 14. Sometimes I know some teams that have parent coaches until they're 17, 18, but it all depends on like how capable the parents is of doing a
Yeah.
good job, how interested they are, how much time they have. So normally parents don't have time or the qualifications to be a coach past 7 aside.
Yeah, but when I was in Iceland,
Yeah.
because I'm obviously from Iceland, I'm
Hmm.
Icelander, obviously. My dad was also telling me, oh, like they have professional coaches from since they were like 6.
Yeah.
Do do you think that Norway as a whole is lacking because they don't have the same luxury?
Well, it depends because a lot of like the parents that are coaches are very capable. I have to say that because my father was my coach from when I was 6 to when I was 14. So a lot of parents do have, for example, a football background. For example, my father played at very high level football, so he had like football background, and we had another parent coach that had like had been a coach for like the local regional teams, that the crest teams. Yeah. So we had some capable parent coaches, and it's some sort of like having football is very big in Norway. It's a big sport. So in there's probably more youths that play football in Norway than there are the population of Iceland. So it's very hard to have like professional coaches coach them from -6 compared to Iceland. So if you want to do like professional coaches from the -6 just in Bergen, you probably will make it happen. But on like the plethora of the whole Norway, of the whole country, and spreading out to every club in Norway is very hard. It's basically not possible, and we have like this grassroots type of social climb. So you have to have some sort of grassroots background and so forth. So you have to have like this, start from the bottom and then work yourself up. So if you just jump to the professional coaches, the jantelov, which is like this, you're not better than anyone else law we have in Norway, or like this social norm. If you start a professional coaches and stuff like that very early, you will like we believe that you will like lose touch of, or like lose humbleness. So I think that's a part of the reason why we don't have a lot of professional coaches from a young age.
Yeah, but do you think they're suffering because of that? Do you think that they're
No, no,
worse
no.
off?
Because a lot of the developing in the younger years, you won't become a good player until you're maybe 12, 13. And then when you're 12, 13, you really start to like build your playing, or like your football IQ, which is very important. But as a coach now, when I'm coaching 14-year-olds, I try to develop that. But until you're like 11, you just practice on your shooting and your passing and the basic techniques. So a professional coach probably will maybe boost it a bit, but won't boost it that much. And the real development phase of a football player won't start until they're 12, 13. Yeah, so
Yeah.
I do believe that we don't actually slack, or like we're not slacking because of we don't have professional coaches, because for first part, football is not just for the professionals. It's like a broad span. We have like, for example, in the senior football, we have like 8 divisions for men, which is a very broad spectrum of level of playing. So football is not just to make people as good as they possibly can be is also to keep them in football for as long as they can be. So if you have professional coaches from the age of 6, maybe a lot of players will quit at an earlier stage, and you don't want that because you want the social part of football to be as important as the like the ability aspect of it. So you don't want just to um, improve the players' attributes. You want to improve their like social behavior, and it's sort of a second school for them. It's part of their upbringing. So, for example, in my club, our motto is as many as possible for as long as possible. We don't care how good they become. We try to make them the best they can be. But the most important thing is that people have a place to feel like second home, which is the football club. So the football clubs don't just have this sporting um, sporting responsibility. You also have this social responsibility to take care of the community.
Yeah, but you don't think that professional coaches can supply that?
Well, yeah, but the focus becomes like shifted, and I believe that the sport will change, and I don't think the sport will like be better because of it. I think we'll slack even more if we start to like professionalize the whole sport.
Slacking no more. Like, what do you put in that?
You don't get like the broad specters if you start to like filtrate the players too early and try to like just make the best players as possible. More people will fall off, and you, for example, will probably lose the late bloomers. You have like a lot of you have a lot of players that are like late bloomers who don't take that big of like developing steps until they're 12, 13, and then they take big steps at like 14, 16, 18. And if they fall off when you're 11, they won't be able to succeed. Like we have a lot of players that have succeeded at an older age. For example, a Norwegian player called Rune Bratseth.
Okay.
I believe he played like in the third division at like age 23, and then he went to Rosenborg at like age 25, and at like 28, I believe he was like the best defensive player in the Bundesliga.
In the Bundesliga.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So he's probably the best defender that has ever played, or the best Norwegian defender of all time. But he didn't like succeed until he was like 25. So you have like those sort of late bloomers that you don't see that often because of the system the football has developed. And if you start to like professionalize it even more, you lose touch with the broad spectrum of the sport, and you start to like it gets narrower and narrower, and then you lose the great feeling of the sport, which is that everyone can join. It's a sport for everyone. If you start to say that it's only a sport for the people that are good at it, you lose a lot of people, and you don't want that.
Or it's so you think that just because you get in professionals, that people will just quit or get kicked out of the club? Like, what do you?
No, but I feel like people will, like a lot of players just play football for fun. I mean, if you're always striving to just make them better and make them suffer, for example, some of them will like that, and some of them will turn into professionals. But the ones that won't like that, that will probably play until they're 17 and then get bored. They will get bored at 11 and quit, and you don't get the board spectre. And I think that just will be the demise of the sport.
The demise of the sport.
Yeah, the Norwegian demise of the sport.
Right, you think that if you got professionals, that it would just destroy the whole sport in a way?
No, but like, for example, professionals would cost money,
Okay.
which is a very great aspect of it, which would make it if you bring in professionals, you have to pay them, and to pay them, the players have to pay more in like club fees, which, for example, removes the ability for low-income families to join the sport as well. And that is probably the worst scenario because a lot of players, like a lot of the national team players, come from low-income families, and you want to don't want like football to be a luxury sport. It has always been like a working class sport, and if it becomes more and more expensive for football players to join the sport, you will be cost lacking there as well because you won't get the extreme talents that possibly don't have or are not that affluent that won't be able to pay the club fees if you have professional coaches. Like, for example, you have in the eastern part of Norway, you have some rich communities and stuff like that in and around Oslo. For example, you have a club called Stabæk and Lyn, which both have like big academies filled with very professional coaches. But it costs like I believe it's like $6,000 a year
To play?
to join the academy. Well, so the club fees are really high.
So 50 or 60,000 krona
Yeah,
a year.
40 to 50. And because you have professional coaches that you have to pay and stuff like that. So it's only the affluent families who are able to afford it. And then you lose touch with maybe a lot of poor kids that are really talented but can't afford to play in those academies. And then you lose them forever because they have to play in like small teams, they don't get the matching. So if big teams say that in order for you to develop, you have to pay us a lot of money, you will lose a lot of players, and the national team will lose. For example, you have Omar El Abdelawi, the vice captain of Norway. He comes from a low-income family. If he can't afford to play for those big Oslo teams, and they say, "Oh, we want you to come here to, for example, Stabæk," and say, "Okay, we think you're talented. Let's go. Just come and play with us." But you have to pay like 10,000 kroner in the yearly fee just to play for them, and then all your teammates go to this academy, which you have to pay 40 to 50,000 kroner a year to be part of, and he struggles just to pay the 12,000 yearly fee just to play for them on a normal level. So then he say, "Oh, a poor kid would say, okay, I can't play anymore for this team." He ends up in a team that's cheaper but don't have the same like sporting like the same quality of development, and he falls behind, gets bored, and then you lose him, which could be a possible great player, but you lose him because it's too expensive. So if it becomes too expensive, it sort of starts being like the American football system, which is pretty messed up.
Okay.
Well, yeah, but in the US, I think it almost like football has become a rich man's sport because you have to pay this much to be in like academies. For example, you see the best player from the US right now is Christian Pulisic.
Mm-hmm.
Rich man.
He is?
Yeah, traveled around Europe to like pay for trials at Barcelona and stuff like that, and trained by a lot of European top teams because he's rich and can pay himself into it. But it's a lot of Americans to say that they probably have been caught slacking, and most of the good players or the hugely talented ones just have to stop because they can't afford to play soccer anymore or football or like soccer in the US because the club fees and the academy fees are so high. So you end up with national teams in the US that are mostly white from affluent families who are some sort of good, but you don't get the natural development of all the country, which makes, for example, that you get the best talents from your country to represent your team. It's more like the best players of the affluent part of the country. For example, you can see that, for example, France, who won the World Cup in 2018, their whole team was 8 or 9 of the starting 11 in the World Cup final were from African backgrounds, which means that our statistics, they're most probably from low-income families, which means that if you start with professional coaches and stuff like that, which raise the club fees and make football affluent-based sport, those players won't make it the whole way, or probably will become late bloomers, and therefore you won't get the teams like France, which have hugely immigrant-based players, which will lead to that the national teams and the professional sport will be lacking. So I believe that you have to make football a sport where everyone can join, and therefore you have to base the junior years, 6 to 12, mainly on volunteering. You can't pay coaches to be from 6 to 12 because football becomes too expensive, and then you lose a lot of players.
No, I haven't. I mean, I moved here when I was 3, so
Yeah.
I don't know that system a lot over in Iceland. But I've never been told that's a problem, at least financials.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that everyone is rich, obviously.
No.
But I've never been told oh yeah, even though they're professional coaches, they're paying $50,000 a year. I've never heard anything remotely close to that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if we take away the money aspect
Mm-hmm.
and just focus on what you're getting in terms of development, in terms of, as you said, keeping everybody in, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if let's say it costs the exact same amount, the professionals and the parents, would you then say that in a way is lacking, or they are kind of not getting the best that they could? Or do you think
Well,
it's the same?
for some sort, you will be lacking because the professional will probably have a special eye for things. They won't be biased like some parents will be, and other stuff like that. But the problem with professionals is that they can be too focused on results, which means that if you have 4 good players at the age of 10, 11, and you focus on developing them 4 because they're the best, and see, okay, these 4 can be really good, so we develop these 4, and then be negligent to the 12 others. The problem is that you don't see the professionals can, if they are not trained good enough, they won't be able to see that in youth football, the development process of players is very different. So you have to have an eye on every one of them and try to develop all of them. So, for example, Johan Cruyff said that with the way the Ajax system is based now, built up now, he wouldn't get through. Johan Cruyff, one of the best footballers of all time, he wouldn't get through the Ajax system because he said that I don't shoot hard enough. I shoot hard enough. I'm not strong enough. I'm not built like that. So when he was 14, 15, he wasn't strong enough, and he didn't have the attributes, but he had the vision, which is probably one of the most important things in football. He had the vision, and he had the football IQ, which is very hard to coach. It's very easy to make a player stand on the football pitch and shoot as hard as he can for a long time as he gets better. But if you don't know how to use those attributes and use time a pass and stuff like that, he will be lacking when he gets older. So if the coaches become negligent to the full picture of the players, it will much rather be. I would much rather have a parent that isn't that focused on supporting merit and stuff like that, and and would rather focus on like make everyone happy, because if everyone's happy, you have the potential of all players to step ahead and make it better. But if you have a professional coach that ends up focusing out on just a couple of players, I think the system would like be too streamlined, and the focus on like physical attributes and people that grow faster and stuff like that, and the results based, or like the focus on results in young age groups would ruin the whole system. But it depends, because you don't know if the professional coaches will be focusing on that or not. So if the professional coaches will focus on that and be able to see everyone, I think there's nothing negative about it. But I believe that, for example, parents have an experience of raising kids, and they have like this emotional connection to the team, which probably makes them a better fit for most teams.
Yeah, I can kind of see what you mean in those terms. And then you also said that after a certain age, it's not about. I mean, you said when you're like 14, 15, that's when you're not practicing the basic techniques anymore. You're finding.
Yeah, so
Like, would you say that then a professional would be more?
yeah, of
Why?
course, because when you come to like the age of 13, 14, 15, it's maybe, I believe the age group 14 to 15 is probably the most important age for a footballer, because then you go from practicing techniques to developing your football IQ. So, for example, I believe that a football player can be based on two things. You have the ability of a football player and the potential. So the ability is what you have right now. So the level you're playing at right now. So, for example, if you have a 13-year-old, that is very good. And then you have the potential. So the ability is based on like your attributes, how hard you can shoot, how good you can shoot, how good you are at finishing, how your precision at passing. Whilst your potential is your football IQ and what you actually can do with the ball when you receive it, how you press, how you do it, how do you defend, how you make choices on the football field. So in the ages of 13 to 15, you want to expand the potential of a player for as much as you can. And like the focus on developing the abilities is more focused on the years 6 through 11, 12. And then when you come to 13, you want to develop the potential, because you have to lay some groundwork and have some sort of abilities to have the understanding of how you can develop your football IQ. But when you have that, the most important thing is to develop your football IQ. Because, for example, the ability to make a good pass, it's not that important if you don't have the understanding to like make a space for the pass. Just for example, if you have a player, you have to be able to make space for yourself to have good enough time to make the accurate pass. That comes to football IQ. So the potential I think of is the potential is the maximal level of what you can do with your attributes. So your ability can always shift, but if you have the potential here and your ability here, if you don't improve your football IQ, for example, you can always practice on finishing and stuff like that, which means that your abilities will be closer and closer to your potential. But at some point, if you practice finishing, you'll be closer to your potential. But if you don't, for example, learn how to come in different positions and different finishing positions for a striker, you only practice finishing. You can be as good at finishing as you want, but if you don't learn how to get in different positions and how to trick the defender, you won't get past the potential point, which means that you won't get better if you just practice and practice. You have to learn football and develop your potential as well. So, for example, Erling Haaland, great player. You see that he isn't like a great striker because of his finishing. He's a great striker because he finds spaces to run in, and he is like at the right place at the right time all the time. He times his runs at the exact perfect time. It's because of football IQ, because he knows what to do, which means that when you see like videos of him when he was younger, he doesn't like battering goals every time he plays. You see, he has lanky, his technique isn't that good. But that's something that you can like practice on yourself. If a coach's role is to develop your football IQ. So that's why professional coaches will help a lot in the years 13 to 15, because you have to develop your football IQ, and there's where like a parent's quality cap will stop. Unless you have like a pro football parent, a professional coach has to come in to the players, show them what to think in different situations, which choices to make, and then you'll be able to develop their, as I see it, like develop their potential and not just their ability. For example, David Beckham is the tale of David Beckham, where he stood on a football field and shot like the same free kick over and over again until he made it 100 times in a row. But it doesn't help if like you hit the target 100 times in a row. If you don't know how to run into the space to get the ball, make space for yourself, and then shoot the ball, there's no reason to practice on shooting if you're not able to create a space for yourself to shoot. So I believe that football IQ and vision and stuff like that is probably more important than your abilities. And that's why you have to make sure that you're not like negligent of any player until maybe like 17. Then you'll have a very good case to say like, this player is not that good, while this player is good, because you don't know their football IQ. You only know their abilities on what they show on the field. So, yeah, I believe that you have to focus on every player and every player's aspects of the game to really develop them. You have to look at the players and coach them one by one. You can't coach a team. When you coach a team, you have to try to develop every single player. You have to try to develop every individual as an individual and then incorporate it into a team. And yeah, I believe, for example, a lot of coaches in youth level focuses too much on results, which means that you develop your players' abilities, but you forget to focus on developing their potential, which means that the players will be better than their peers at football at that age. But if your peers develop their football IQ but didn't focus on their ability, you will lag behind in 2 years' time. If you understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're always saying a lot of football IQ, how you need to improve that. That's
yeah.
key, right? It kind of sounds all. I mean, when you're focusing on the attributes, the internal attributes, it sounds pretty simple. You know, you just shoot a lot. You know, you do a lot of dribbles in training.
Yeah.
You can even do that alone.
Mm-hmm.
You don't even need people to do that.
Yeah.
But to me, it sounds. I mean, you can obviously it probably a bit harder than I mean, it is hard to train attributes as well.
Yeah.
Just put in like the time and the effort and just doing a lot of different exercises, right? But the football IQ thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because you have people like Mbappe who have a lot of football IQ
Yeah.
and have speed and talent to back it up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And and what I know about him is that he watches a lot of football when he's not playing as well,
Yeah.
right? And I think that definitely helped him develop his football IQ, as you're saying. But what are like the most important, or what do you think is the most important part of building that IQ? Because you're saying a lot. You need to build it, but you're not saying how.
Well, I believe that
Specifically.
maybe the most important aspect of like developing the football IQ is to have exposure to different situations. So, for example, you have a lot of formational training. For example, if you practice on playing it out from the back or high pressing and try to work in these types of attacking and defensive systems, your IQ will, or you will understand that system, which means you have exposure to that type of system, and then you will develop your IQ as well. So you have to both coach players on a tactical basis, on different tactics to make them as complex as possible, to be able to, for example, play different positions. That is part of football IQ. I believe, as a coach myself, that a player should be able to play 2 to 3 positions on the field, because you have to be prepared for every type of coach as well as every type of football or every type of tactical differences between coaches. So your football IQ, you need to have exposure to situations. It's just like driving. When you drive, you get a better driver with age because you have been in different type of driving situations, which means that you know what to do the next time you get in that situation. So that's well with football IQ. If you know what to do, if you have like a drill and training where you're under pressure by a opposition player, and then you know what to do to either relieve that situation by dribbling him or just make simple pass. So to know what to do in those situations by being exposed to those situations, your IQ will drastically improve. But also you have to have like this understanding of the game, the understanding of how to create space for yourself. So if you have a player that is marked by an opposition player and you will get a pass, you have to make them understand that to create space for yourself, you have to lead the opposition player in an opposite way and then pull back. You have to try to trick the opposition player or create space for yourself by not running away from him, but make him like run away from you. And you have to teach them how to, for example, solve one type of play, and then when you learn a player how to solve one type of play, they will be able to understand 3 other situations, because they'll be able to think for themselves as well. So, for example, if you teach a player how to create space for themselves in like receiving a pass and playing another pass, they'll, for example, maybe be able to think for themselves and be able to create space for themselves in a shooting situation on how to run into the box. So if a player is exposed to one situation, he will be able to think for himself and create a solution for another situation. So it's always about knowing what to do in simple situations will make you able to solve complex situations. If you understand.
Yeah, it's like, you know, you've been in that situation before, then you can
Yeah.
act more wisely, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
So and you practice that by playing with others in games,
Yeah, for
practice that
example,
by you can do. And would you agree that you can practice your football IQ by watching games?
well, I believe that you don't have to like be interested in football to be a good football player. It is possible to have a natural football IQ without finding football especially interesting. But I think you will you will to some degree can to some degree expand your football IQ by being interested in watching the best players, because you see what they do and you try to replicate it. But you also have to have this sort of you have to have this understanding that you are not as good as them, so you can't do the same as them. Like you can't shoot from 40 meters because a pro can shoot from 40 meters. You have to be able to humble yourself and see that I have to develop this and this to be able to do this and this. So I think that to some degree you will be able to develop your football IQ by watching professionals and watching more football. But what you do on the field, in training and in games, is the most important, most important part of developing. And for example, when drill wise, when it comes to developing your football IQ, mostly we use like possession drills where you have two teams, three teams, or like just a possession based drill where teams try to keep the ball in their teams for as long as possible. So this really helps by developing your football IQ because it replicates most of the aspects of a game. You get defending when you don't have the ball, you get possession based play when you have the ball, and you will develop your football IQ by knowing what to do in high pressure situation, and the pressure will be higher in a possession drill than in an actual game because it's a lot smaller pitch. So possession drills is mostly the best type of way to develop your football IQ drill wise. But also just playing football, playing games will help you, if you understand, because when you play games, you get in new situations, you replicate situations that will happen in an official game. So playing games, for example, training, playing matches at the end of training, you will be able to develop your football IQ because you get in new situations and you will know what to do. But you also have to, as a coach, tell the players what they did wrong. For example, if you have a match at the end of training and you see that a player did the wrong choice, you have to tell them that they did the wrong choice so that they don't do it again. So you have to tell them what's right and wrong, so that they don't do the same mistakes over and over again.
Yeah, you should give them feedback individually.
Yeah, you have to give them feedback, and you also have to like teach them what's the right way as well.
Yeah. And then, but your favorite? I mean, my favorite exercise when it comes to like possession play.
Mm-hmm.
That is when you put 3 teams.
Yeah.
Somewhere between like 9 or, I mean, three or 4 players per team.
4 or 5.
Oh, you go
4
for 5? Okay.
Because you have to have some sort of opposition as well.
Yeah, okay.
You have to have like those who does not have the ball. You have to be like 4 or 5 players to make it work.
Yeah, because I usually go with 4.
Yeah.
That's like I only go with 3 when there's not enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, but so then I put 3 teams obviously, and one of them is in the middle. One of them is in the middle.
Mm.
And then, but what I've been trying to do is that every time they lose the ball, I mean, whoever loses the ball goes to the middle.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's my age or just what it is, but they always just like end up arguing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, oh no, I wasn't the last one. Oh no, you, whatever, right? And then nowadays I always go with time based.
Yeah.
You know, I put 2 minutes on. You chase the ball. You're not done until the timer hits.
Yeah.
Right. And I always make them try and count the amount of
Interceptions.
interceptions that they get. Yeah. Uh, do you do the same thing at all, or
Yeah.
like, what do you do?
So
How do you do it?
from experience, having like the drill where you switch which team is in opposition and which is in possession of the ball every time they lose the ball.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't really work on people that either haven't played that much football or are very young, because when they're young, for the first part, their brain isn't very developed, which means that they can't focus on more than maybe just either you're having the ball and you're in possession or in opposition. So mostly the players have to just have one focus, which is either try to keep the ball for as long as possible or try to win the ball. So, for example, when you're 13, 14, it gets too complex for most players to have the sort of switch in the drill. So I do the same as you, use the time-based, interception-based formula of doing the drill, because my players mostly don't hold the level to understand and focus enough to be able to make the drill effective. The efficiency of the drill will fall away if you don't understand it.
Exactly, because they just focus on like the wrong thing. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, who was the last one to touch the ball when it
Yeah.
gets out, instead of how many interceptions, like what did I do wrong in losing the ball? You know what I mean?
They're more focused of like making the team that they're joined with, 1 and 3 teams. The 2 teams in possession will be more focused on not being the team that loses the ball, and actually playing good football.
Yeah.
And it gets very childish, but they are children, so it's understandable. But you always have to try to have drills that are fit for the people that you coach. You also have to base your drills on their attributes and their abilities to play football. You shouldn't make a drill that you have to be on this level when you have this level and hope that they strive up to this level. You rather like work yourselves up.
Yeah, you want to be slightly above.
Yeah. You want to have a drill that's hard enough that you will see development.
Yeah.
Over some sort of time, and then you can make a new drill. But you don't want to like set an end goal and hope that they strive for that, because then it will just implode.
And also, what I was, I think I was kind of wondering about was, do you make them play in like triangles and squares, and one dude in the middle trying to chase the ball?
Yeah.
Do you have the same problem where they just go with the nutmegs every time?
No, but the problem is there's always in the team the level is not consistent. So every player isn't at this level, which means that there often is like a worse player and a very good player. And if you get like 2 to 3 worse players, and these end up in the middle, they're most likely not that, doesn't have like the highest football IQ, and they most likely aren't that fit. And when they end up in the middle, what happens is that they end up in the middle for a very long time. So you have to like sometimes just interrupt their session and say, okay, he has to go out of the middle, put a new one in, and then it goes like 20 seconds, and then it's in the middle again. So you have to, with what I said earlier, you have to see every player. You have to see that a worse player won't develop if he always ends up in the middle and just ends up running around. So, like, those triangle or four types of those types of drills. They can be efficient to some degree, but you have mostly in the young ages when there are very big skill gaps. You have to interrupt the drills and try to make them as fair as possible. But it's great, like warm-up practice, and the older you get, the better it is because the tempo and the defending inside of the middle is much greater. So then you can develop it from like this triangle to, and you end up in what you call a rondo.
Yeah.
A rondo is like a big circle of players. You have one touch, each player, and you have two in the middle that chase the ball. And that's like what you use at like top level because you only have one touch, you stand in a circle, and you get high intensity for those who run around in the middle. So that's what like the top teams use as well. So you can do it from a like skill based. You shouldn't start doing like a full rounder until you're like 16, but from that it's just great and fun, and it's like a good exercise, and it's fun for most of the players except the ones that are in the middle.
Yeah, because I was very ambitious when I first started, and I was like, the first thing I did was the rondo.
Yeah.
And
but like when you're a coach, you have to like try drills,
Yeah.
and if they are not able to understand it, you say, okay, that was too complex. We'll do it again when they're better.
later, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do a lot of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I just, it's, well, I mean, would you agree that it's a lot of like trial and error? It's,
Yeah.
You know, sometimes you might just know the drill is way too difficult. Like it's just stupid. And sometimes I'm sitting there, I'm planning like the session for next week or something,
Mhm.
right? And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna try something new. This sounds very like intuitive. It sounds like this is definitely gonna work. And then I show up in training, you know, all confident. I'm like, yes, I'm gonna really improve today. And then it just goes bananas.
Yeah.
Right? It's just completely, and then you have to kind of scrap what you have.
And just
And then,
improve. Improvise.
yeah, and then you're like, wow, I got 40 minutes, and the thing I was gonna do was way too complicated. I'm like, okay, what the hell am I gonna do now?
And when you set up a complicated drill, it mostly takes like it's level based as well. So you start at one level and then you go around and higher. And if they don't make the first level or can't complete like the first level of how hard it is, you're fucked because then you can't go to the next level because they couldn't make the first level.
Exactly.
And then you have like a 30-minute gap. We have to try to fill it with a new drill. But mostly like when you trial and error, it's more that you sort of think the best of yourself and think, it's probably too hard, but I'm a good coach. So I will.
Oh, yeah.
I'm good enough to explain it to them, and because I'm so good, they'll understand it. And then they don't understand fuck, and then you're like, okay. So either you waste 30 minutes trying to explain this drill, or you have like, okay, we just go back to the like a basic drill that they will get something out of, but it's not what you thought. But as a youth coach, I experienced a lot of that. Either you have a drill that's like too complicated and they don't understand it, and when they're young as well, they try when they don't understand it, they just like fuck around and don't do anything. But when you when you use a drill, when you're new as coach and you use a drill that they've done before, they're like, we've done it before, we don't want to do this. And then you give them a new drill, and they're like, what the fuck is this? This is way too hard. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
what are you gonna do? Because if you do a drill that you know they will be able to do, and they have the ability to do, they complain because they've done it before. And when you do a drill that they done before. They fuck up then as well. They fuck up the easy drills. Like you have like these triangles that you just have to pause and then run after the ball. 4 people in a triangle, one at each cone, with one cone that's 2 at, and you just pause. Suddenly the balls are flying everywhere. I don't know, but like when you have youth players, they always have the ability to fuck up in some extreme and special way. And especially, I can't say that I failed that much as a youth coach because we play like 9 games, 10 games. My team had 10 games when I've been a coach, and we won every game. So I'm kind of hyped. But yeah, I feel like
And that's
I'm
all
very
you.
I'm
That's
very
all
lucky. I'm very lucky because the team I've gotten to work with is very talented, and the skill gap isn't that big. Most of the team is like inside like one category of skill based, or like they're very close when it comes to skill, so it's much easier to coach them. So I've been very lucky with the group of players that I've gotten to coach because they're pretty great.
Yeah, I'm very grateful myself. You know. But one of the things that I remember I attended one of your sessions, and then I wrote you feedback. Did I ever send that, by the way?
No.
Oh, okay. Okay, that was like 2 months, like 3 months ago.
3 months ago.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Okay. I totally forgot to send it.
Yeah,
But anyway.
it doesn't matter. I only don't need feedback from like amateurs.
Oh. But one of the things that I kind of was noting was, and I'm kind of guilty of this myself.
Yeah.
But and also we had this substitute teacher, which kind of was the same thing, and I believe that you kind of had to find a balance between being their mates, and being like, the boring. You're gonna learn from me as well. You know what I mean?
But the thing is, like, with my role as coach, because at the time, and still, I'm not the head coach. I'm an assistant coach, but like, in like especially the fall when I had another head coach, we were like on the same like power basis. Like I decided the tactics and the teams, but he was like set up as the main coach. So when you have like a head coach and an assistant coach, the head coach becomes the more boring, and gives me room to be like more of the mates. So you have to try to gain the respect as well as saying, I'm not like just a boring person. I'm the young coach that will also be your mate and help you, or like have fun with you. But you also have to try like gain enough respect from them to make them understand that what you're saying to them will actually make them a better player. So I don't think I haven't. I'm far from like my top level of how to, like, when it comes to like charisma and how to make them understand that I'm an authoritarian person. But like one thing that I did was like before we took like Christmas break, we had like 2-3 practices where we have like some like not football training, more like strength-based training workouts, and I like those type of workout was pretty hard, like a lot of burpees, a lot of runs.
For you, for them.
For them.
Okay.
I was just standing there laughing at them.
Okay.
So then you get like the authoritarian part of it by making them suffer while you can just stand looking at them. Then you gain some like type of respect because they understand that if you want to, you can make them hurt or suffer. And also, the fact is, all they want is to play football. They enjoy playing football. So when you're the one deciding the team and the tactics and stuff like that, who will play and who will sit on the bench, you gain some respect from that as well. So when you hold that power over them, they have to listen, and you have to make them understand that if you don't listen to me, I can control how much you play. So if you listen to me and I see that you've done things and developed because of the things I've said, you'll probably play more. And that's like what is called in Norwegian. We have the saying of carrot and whip from like horses. That there's two types of making people do things for you. You can either use the carrot, like making, giving them some sort of benefit from what they're doing, or like make them suffer to do it, like whipping a horse to make them run, or giving them a carrot to run.
Yeah, it's pretty intuitive.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm trying to like be their mates, because I've seen that coaches that distance themselves from the players too much aren't able to connect with the players that much. But you also have to understand that you are not part of the team. You are the one leading the team. So you have to try to gain some respect from them as well.
Yeah, and that's kind of how I stand as well, where, I might, at a training, while there's like a pretty long walk, like from the pitch to like whatever, to like the car or something. And then what you might talk about, like FIFA or something, you know what I mean, like for fun, or like even to the pitch. But like I try when we're in training, like to like knock that down, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And therefore, like I'm hoping that they can acknowledge that, like when the training is, then it's like kind of professional, you know what I mean? And then afterwards, we can fuck around with this.
Yeah. I try to like.
Yeah, and also, sorry for like intruding, but it's this kind of, I couldn't remember when I was at their age, there was nobody like us. There was nobody like 18-year-old that I could look up to.
Well,
I mean, did you
I didn't have like.
I mean, you had brothers, obviously, but
Yeah, but like when I was like 13, 14, when I was 14, we had some sort of like coach that was like me, that was helping out, taking their coach's degree and stuff like that. But he wasn't that like high up the ranks. He was like our assistant coach and was helping, but he wasn't that prominent in like the coaching staff as probably I will be with my team. So we have like had some youth coaches up through the years, but I think right now, both with like the club trying to get more youth coaches and trying to like develop a bigger batch of youth coaches in the club, as well as like the interest from like 17, 18-year-olds is bigger for being a coach. You will get more 17, 18, 19-year-olds being coaches for younger teams. And I think it helps having like a young perspective, because most of like the experience I have is from the last few years, and I know what it's like to being an under 14s player, because I was that 4 years ago. So being able to have like really recent experience from what the players are going through, I think that brings a lot to the table.
Yeah, and okay, then you probably had somebody, but when I was, I mean, up until now, basically, I haven't really had anybody that was, like 15, 16, 17,
Yeah.
18. Those older guys you would see when you, I mean, whenever, right? Like students,
Yeah.
when you think that, oh, they're grown ups, you know what I
Mm.
mean? And I was like, oh, look up to them because, they would work out, they would do this and that, right?
Mm.
I didn't really have that.
Oh,
And
so for me, it was always like the senior team
okay,
at the club that was like the prominent figure of what you want to reach someday, because I think we started training with the under 19s when we were 15. That was like the first time we trained with them. So you went from like you couldn't worship like the under 19s, which were like the oldest guys when you were training with them. So for me, it's always been like the senior team at the club that was like the figure that you looked up to and was like you're some kind of worshipping. And like
worshiping.
yeah, but like it was those who was like the pros at the club. It was those who like you want to reach that level someday, and there are. It sounds a bit foolish, but like there were maybe like you looked a bit like holy.
Okay.
That
Okay.
that they were holy, like they were untouchable because they were the senior team.
Mhm.
And now I'm in the senior team, and I've been like with the senior team since I was 16. So you from when you're 16, when you're done like play with them every week and train with them, it gets like a bit different situation because like you can't look up to a team that you play on and train with.
You can kind of do that.
Yeah, but like you go from being like a player that says, "Oh, I want to be like them one day," to like being yelled at and yelling at them in training every week, and you get more like the respect is still there, and you gain at the same time you gain more respect for them because you see how good they are, and you actually play with them, but you also lose respect because you don't get like the distance between you. You don't get that humbled. It's more like you get close to them and you see how good they are actually, and then see, oh, but I'm near their level, and then like, okay, and then you like start to worship or like look up to professional players as that because you've reached the highest rank of your club, so you have to look further than your club.
No, I would kind of, I mean, I would imagine that when Marcus Rashford was first admitted to the first team, that he would still
Yeah.
look up to Rooney.
Yeah.
That was not that. I wouldn't entirely agree with that. But anyway, if we go back to like I didn't really have that
Mhm.
that I can recall anyway.
Yeah.
So I'm now that I'm coaching and I take on the role, I feel like I'm also trying to take on like a mentor role. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Someone that they can look up to and aspire to be at.
Yeah.
Right. And that also including improving myself.
Yeah.
Right. By just trying to be there for them, but try helping them improves me in time.
Mhm.
Right. Because now I'm obviously trying to be there on time. Respect everyone, make sure everyone is included,
Yeah.
everyone is heard. You're not being a cunt to these guys to impress them. You're complete. You're nice to everyone, right?
Yeah.
And I want them to see that I'm nice to everyone, so that they also become nice to everyone. So it's not
Mhm.
like they become like dickheads tomorrow. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's what I'm also trying to, and that doesn't just include like when I'm training. That also means that, that I stay healthy. I truly believe that's an important thing.
Yeah.
And I'm staying healthy. That I'm still playing myself.
Mhm.
I think that's definitely helps a lot. And like you kind of you show them your good habits, so
Mhm.
they kind of try and follow suit.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. For example, when I'm in training, when we like are an odd number of players, I join
yeah,
like
yeah.
playing a bit, and I try to like show them what level I am at, so that they know that there's still a way to go. Because, yeah, but like
I'm a beast. I'm a beast.
yeah, but like when you show them what level you're at, and show them, yeah, you're better than them.
Mm.
You gain a bit of respect from that as well, because you show them that you're better than them, so they have something to strive after, and know that this person has become this good, so it's possible for me to be this good.
Mm.
But we also have to, like, for example, when we have like had a month break from training, um, I still followed up on them and try to have them train them on their own and monitor them and made them say how much they train each week. So I try to like make sure that they know that I care about what they do, not just on the field, but how much they train when we're not having training together, and how much their work rate is, how much they care, because I want to show that I care, and I want them to care because I care. So I want them to, like, we have this equal relationship, or I put in hours and work into making them as good a player as they can be, and then they have to show up with the same care where they care about being or having the work rate to be the best player that I can be. So I want to show that I care, because then I feel like I can expect that they show the same amount of care back at me.
Yeah, but how do you follow up on them? That to me seems like a really like fine line between just straight up stalking and
No, but I tried to, because when I was younger we had like Facebook groups where we
Okay.
sent in. But the problem is that no 14-year-old have Facebook right now.
Mm.
So I just said to them on training that you should get Facebook so that we can make a training group or like workout group.
Mm.
But then it spread to the parents, and the parents was like, it wasn't okay to ask them to have Facebooks and stuff like that. And then I was like, fuck, so I'm going to follow up on them. So I just made like this sort of program with a lot of different workout drills and different types of workouts when it comes to like stamina, like running and stuff like that, when it comes to strength, and when it comes to, what was it? I think different parts, different stretching methods and stuff like that. And then I made it all in like a document, sent it out to them. We have like this app called Spond,
Mm-hmm.
where you give information to your players. And then each week I made like this like end of the week quiz, or like, I don't know what you call it, but like this like poll where you crossed out how much you worked out and what you worked out with. For example, if you play football, if you had done another sport, if you had gone out and run, if you had a strength workout and stuff like that. And then I trust them to report what they actually done.
It's like not lie.
Yeah, because if they lied, I will see it when we start training again.
Yeah.
What physical level they're at. But what I've seen from like the polls, it seems like they're saying the truth, and I've got to know them, so I know that this guy does another sport, so I know that he will train a lot, even though we don't have football.
Mm.
And this guy has a high work rate in training, so if I ask him to train outside of training, he will. So I know them, so I know that if they're lying, I can see that. But mostly the workout regime I set up outside of training is most like to see what basis we're at when we're starting a new like preseason. Because if they hadn't trained when we stopped training, if they like didn't do any work at their own, we have to like lay a lot more physical groundwork and a lot more we have to have a lot more physical training in the start of training and the start of preseason, and then we can start off with like technical play and tactics and stuff like that. But if they have trained a lot and do good on like the tests we have to do in the start of preseason, like running tests and stuff like that, then I know that they are physically capable to handle the type of football I want to play, and that makes it much easier for me as a coach.
Yeah. And if we kind of go back to the whole like mental thing, I always obviously try to like, as I said earlier, but when you meet them, because it's obviously your local team, so when you go to the pitch with your mates and stuff, you kind of just see them around because they're also there, right?
Well, yeah, but luckily for me, most of my players live in like another area, so the club has like 2 primary schools that are connected to the club.
Oh, okay.
And I went to one of them, and most of my players went to the other one.
Okay.
So they mostly play on the other pitch. But every time I like go to my own trainings, I can see them because some of them are at the academy. So
Yeah.
I can still meet them at the academy if I want to.
Yeah, and in those situations, in those situations, like when I meet them, when I'm just going to the pitch randomly, like going for a hike or something, I always then even try to like
Impress you.
no, like I always try to. I try to, even then trying to like show them,
Yeah.
know,
Who's a leader?
no, not even that, but like the mentor thing.
Yeah.
I always try to like be their friend as to like spread that, that I'm not just playing this dude. I'm this all the time.
Yeah.
And that's really important. So that they're not just so that they're not just some dude in training, and then when they get home, they just become a complete piece of shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That it's consistent.
Yeah.
That's
You have to like front an example of the
yeah.
person
You front
that
it
you
on
want
and
them to
off
be.
the pitch.
Yeah. You have to show that you're not trying to like just develop them as footballers. You have to try to make them the best of person as they can be as well.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
you have when you're coached at that age, you are like a role model, and you are like you have to show them that that football is like should be a second home to them, and you have to understand that a lot of players can get very affectionate of you, and like you can end up being like a big role model for them at that age, because when their parents maybe like isn't that involved in football and stuff like that, and you end up like being there instead of the parents, you have to understand that you can end up playing an important part of the life.
Exactly.
So you have to humble yourself and understand that the role you have can be very important to the persons you are a coach for.
And that kind of like that's kind of what I'm thinking when I'm kind of reflecting on this whole thing, that it almost doesn't matter how good they become. The most important thing is like what they take home after training and what they like take and bring with them for the rest of their life.
Well, to be honest, most of the players that we coach, probably all of them, won't ever be like professional footballer. But our job is to make the best of each one. But also, it is a part of their upbringing, and we have to like treat them in ways so that they can become the best person they can possibly be as well. So we have to like teach them how to act when they're with different people, and we have some sort of the same role as their teacher at school, and we have to show them how to act to a person of power as we are, how to treat your teammates, and generally how to be a good person. And a lot of people only do like football as like a hobby.
Yeah.
So you have to understand that most likely you are the person outside of their home and their school that probably has the most influence on them, except for like social media and stuff like that. So you have to understand that you have to teach them how to cope with, for example, stress, and how to cope with how to develop in something, because that is what they have to need later in life. Because if they're chill at school, chill at home, and the only stress they like me is at the football pitch, you're the one that has to teach them how to deal with it, because that's the only stress factor. So you have to teach them that.
Yeah, I think that's really important. Like that kind of aspect of the whole thing.
Yeah. Because like being a youth coach it's not harder than being a professional coach, but like the people you have to deal with, the players you have to deal with, and the job you have to do with them is more complex, because there's different aspects of it. When you're a professional coach, you just have to get the best results you can. When you have like paid players and stuff like that. But when you have youth players, they pay you to make them the best players they can be. And also you have like this community responsibility as well, with making them the best persons they can be as well. So the aspects of it makes being youth coach a bit more complex.
Wait, pay you? Do you get paid for this?
Yeah.
What?
I believe. So
Wait,
I haven't
what?
got paid yet, but I was promised some pay.
Oh, you promised pay.
Yeah, but like the thing is that mostly you get paid for this because you put hours into this.
Oh, I don't get paid squat.
You got scammed, bro.
It's about the learning experience. It's not about the pay.
Yeah, but
Yeah, I mean, I should probably look into that.
yeah.
But again, that's not why I became a coach, though. I didn't do this because of money.
For example,
Obviously,
if
I'm not getting paid.
I don't know. I'm not sure if I get paid, but if I get paid, it's not nearly the compensation for what you put into it.
No, it's not.
So you have to like be willing to put hours and work into your coaching job.
Yeah, you have to also enjoy it.
You have to enjoy it.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I would never be there like 2 hours a week, just staying there. And I mean, I was there yesterday. I was there freezing my ass off. Because it was like -5 or something, right? I was literally like shaking, and I was like, I would never do that unless I wanted to. Like, I had that passion to do that.
Like
for
showing up in like pouring rain on a Tuesday afternoon just to coach a group of 13-year-olds. You have to be pretty fucked in the head to do that. But like me and you, but like you have to have like funny. You have to be a little bit thick to do that.
Or
but
passionate. Passionate. That's what we call it. You have to be passionate.
Yeah. You have to both be passionate and
we have to get in class in like 2 minutes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, we can just finish up. Yeah, passionate. You have to be passionate. Yeah.
You have to be passionate, because if you're not passionate, your players will like see through you and see that.
And also feed off their energy.
Yeah, because if your players see that you don't like to be there, they won't like you and see like, oh, he doesn't care about us, so why should we care about him?
Exactly.
And then it's all fucked. And this was...
Yeah, go on.
When you're passionate, you have to show that you care. And this was the end of part 1 of intellectual experience.
Yeah.
Come back for part 2.
Yeah, at least. We have to make class. Yeah.
Yeah, we can make part 2.
Yeah, but sure. This was a lot of fun. Thank you for being here.